What is up, guys? Rob of Rule of Two Review here. I'm back from vacation, and man, do I have a lot of catching up to do. So how the heck is everybody doing? Like I said, I am back from vacation. I was gone over this last long weekend, and I wasn't able to make any videos. I had a great time going back to my old city of Denver that I just moved away from for two of my best friends' wedding and my girlfriend's birthday and all these great things. So I was gone for a while, and over this last while, a whole hell of a lot of gaming news happened. And it's kind of frustrating because for probably the last month leading up to my vacation, now a week ago, I was actually really struggling to find solid news to make videos on. I mean, if you probably look at a lot of the videos I was making and stories I was discussing over the last 3 or 4 weeks, there really wasn't a lot, and I even stretched it thin by, putting up my Let's Play of Titanfall, a 1.5-year-old game, which I was actually happy to do and probably would have done anyways. But it was really just kind of a good example of how little there was to talk about. And that really makes me sad because I like to record as many videos and put them up for you guys on Rule of Two Review as possible. And so, wouldn't you know it, I left for my vacation, and all of a sudden, all these different things started happening, and they were all really big deals. Some of it not so good, a lot of it pretty good, and some of it just weird and out of left field. So, I kind of figured I was going to do my little version of a week in review, which, as you know, I don't typically do, but every once in a while I have a reason to do so. I like doing it this way, so I just have, a couple pieces of news that I'm really just going to discuss for you guys. So first, we're going to start off by talking about Sony. Sony had a couple of huge pieces of news that came out this week. One of the biggest things that was probably shocking for a lot of people, well, I shouldn't say shocking as in surprising. I mean shocking as in genuinely shocking that this decision was made, was that Andrew House, who is the president of Sony Computer Entertainment, at an investor meeting made a statement that they are now relegating the PlayStation Vita to what is called a legacy platform, quote unquote. That is something that is being handled for the PlayStation Vita outside of Japan only, because in Japan it actually does pretty well. I guess I should say comparatively well. It's still not doing amazingly, but it does well enough to apparently keep itself going and sort of, facilitate its own mild success. I know that the JRPG genre is what really helps keep that afloat in Japan. Outside of Japan, so basically North America and Europe, it's just never done well. I mean, it just hasn't. If you look at the numbers, it's really sad because a lot of people say it's a great machine, and I've always wanted to own one, but have never had a reason to. And now I really won't have a reason to. So because of its inability to succeed outside of Japan, they're kind of sort of pushing that thing to the wayside and calling it a legacy platform. There is still another piece of news to this whole status about the PlayStation Vita being relegated to a legacy platform. There was an update that apparently happened to this piece of news. Sony actually released a clarifying statement about what Andrew House was getting at when he mentioned that it was being turned into a legacy platform. Apparently, it was directed solely at older models of the PlayStation Vita, which I find interesting. Here are the two quotes that I was able to find about what this update to Andy's statements mean. The statement reads, and I quote, "What Andy mentioned as a legacy platform was part of the write-off for PS Vita components for the first generation of PlayStation Vita, which is no longer available in the market." Not quite sure what the market means. I don't know if that means the entire world or just the UK and North America, but anyway. Sony goes on to say, and he did not directly mean the current PlayStation Vita and PlayStation TV models, which are available in the market. Our portable business will be continued, and many users are now enjoying PlayStation 4 remote play features, as well as original PS Vita game titles on PS Vita and PS TV. So that's kind of a unique statement. It's kind of makes you wonder, are they damage controlling? Is that really true? And maybe Andrew House didn't quite know what he was saying or didn't really clarify enough when he made that statement at the investors meeting. It's kind of a mixed message. I think that honestly the whole thing is still sad. I hate to see the PlayStation Vita even being torn, back and forth from current to not current to, relevant to legacy status to successful in Japan to successful nowhere. It's just really unfortunate that Sony couldn't really figure out what to do with the PlayStation Vita. Apparently they still want to tell us that it's still relevant, and I really don't believe that. I think that's the ultimate, perspective that I have on this, is that I really don't believe what that update says. I believe Andrew House was correct the first time when he said it's becoming a legacy platform outside of Japan. I don't think that they're really supporting it. They're probably going to sell out of the stock that they have in stores now. They might eventually have to do a recall, and we probably won't see any more games coming out for it, at least retail games. So I think it's probably going to be effectively dead. I mean, the PlayStation TV I know it's like a neat little thing, and they go on somewhere to say how people are still enjoying the remote play with the PlayStation 4 and the PlayStation Vita, yada yada. And it's like, okay, I mean that's a thing that you can do with it, but I don't think it's exciting, and it's never been a selling point for either system, to be fair. You know, it's not like the Wii U. It's not two platforms that are built around this ability. It's just a nice little bonus feature, but I don't think it's relevant to people and how they game on their PlayStation. You know, and I say that as a PlayStation 4 owner and someone who, like I said, has wanted a Vita but couldn't find a reason to buy one. I really just think that none of that stuff is true, and the PlayStation Vita is going to be officially dead. The only way this may prove untrue to me is if they actually do discuss it at E3, which is now next week, which is so crazy and awesome to think about. So, I mean, that's really it, man. I mean, if they can show us at E3 that they're doing anything that is important or significant for the Vita, then I'll believe that they're trying to continue that portable business, but I doubt it, man. Sony's bleeding money too hard. The PlayStation 4 is doing fantastically, but with the rest of the company and the PlayStation Vita specifically not doing well, there's no reason for them to do it. You know, they're killing it in the console market. They're getting owned by Nintendo and the mobile machines in the portable market, and there's just no reason for them to do it. And again, it sucks. I hate to admit it because I want the Vita to be successful, and I'd love a reason to pick one up, but it's just not going to happen, so it's sad to see this happening to the doomed PlayStation Vita. So another really interesting piece of Sony news that also came out from that same investor meeting where Andrew House was speaking is another really not awesome piece of news, but I don't necessarily know that it's affecting Sony negatively, so it's kind of unique. Basically what happened, I'm sure a lot of you know again, because all these stories are like, a week behind, is he mentioned how the first party lineup for the PlayStation 4 is quote unquote sparse for 2015. And he hinted that it's not really looking at picking up anytime soon. Down the road, for sure. He's never going to, make anyone think, especially at a meeting like that or to the public, that there's nothing to look forward to in the future. But he made it sound like there's really nothing for quite a while that we can expect on the first party front. He also went forward to say that securing exclusive third-party content is proving harder and harder nowadays too, and really a less effective business model. So I find all of that stuff very interesting. Here's what I like about it. I will say this. What I like about it is that Andrew House and Sony are being honest. And that's typically something that over this last year, really Microsoft and Phil Spencer has been very good about. Nintendo really never gets themselves involved with these kinds of things, and they just don't talk enough about what they're doing, which is kind of frustrating. But, Microsoft and, Phil Spencer, who represents Microsoft and the Xbox, he's come out and said a lot of honest things, even when you would think it might not be a positive thing to say. He's been very blunt and forthcoming about it, which is good. And now we finally have a case where Sony and somebody from Sony is actually doing the same thing, and I think that that's cool. As opposed to being like, oh, there's so many games to play and all this content. It's just right around the corner and we've got surprises coming. And even though none of that's true, because at the end of the day, if they said, oh, we have stuff to announce soon, and they really didn't, we would all call bullshit on it. We would call them out on it. So I think it's nice that he's saying, you know what? I'm not going to just sugarcoat it. Here's what's going on with the game library for the PlayStation 4. The mega successful PlayStation 4. We ain't got nothing. We have no first-party games looking, that are coming out on the horizon anytime soon. I think that sucks, man. I'm getting really sick of even having to talk about this, and more than even having to talk about it, what I'm getting sick of is seeing how the gaming industry is progressing at this point. How gamers are spending their money on gaming products. It's really frustrating. And I repeat this on a lot of videos, so I'm sorry for all the guys out there, all of you who've heard me say this stuff before, but I have to repeat it. I own all the consoles. I own a PlayStation 4, and I like it a lot as a machine. And there are a couple of games that I play regularly. I play Call of Duty on it, and I play Destiny on it. And I play those games. Oh, and Bloodborne, of course. I play those games regularly. So I get a lot of use out of my PlayStation 4, but it's not like I sing the praises of my PlayStation 4 because there's really nothing great going on with it. And it's just so frustrating that people keep spending their money on the machines that have the least compelling things going on, and then the other machines that, something that might have a really great library, a lot of games to get excited for, whether they're third party or exclusive, those are the systems that people aren't really buying, and that's the gamers are not giving their money to the titles that I think they should be, and to the platforms that I think they should be, at least relatively compared to the respective competition. It just makes no sense. It all seems backwards to me. The PlayStation 4, like I said, is a good machine that I enjoy, and I'm glad it's successful, but it frustrates me that it's so successful compared to the Xbox One and the Wii U, which I both think have better libraries right now. And I just don't know why it's happening this way. And this is basically Sony coming out for the second time and saying, we don't have games to play, but I'm glad that everyone's buying our system despite the lack of games to play. I don't really know where else to go with that information than to say that, and I need to reiterate that this isn't me slamming Sony or the PlayStation 4, because again, like I said, I love it. I own one and I love it and I play it a lot, but it is just really a unique kind of situation this whole generation is in, and I can't figure it out. I really don't know what's going on there. I think it's sad that Sony wasn't prepared with titles within the first 2 years for the PlayStation 4, and that somehow, after the first couple of months when they should have seen the success that the system was gaining, that they couldn't have done something to get some games ready to come out right now by the end of 2015. That is still 7 months away, the end of the year, and they can't have anything else coming out. I mean, I don't know what they're going to be showing at E3. I have to tell you, this is the most nervous I've been for Sony at E3 in a long time. They've basically all but said that there's not going to be anything to talk about for the PlayStation Vita. Okay, there you go. That's, what was half of their gaming platform market basically out the window. And now they're telling us there's not a lot of exclusives or third-party games to look forward to. What the hell are they going to show? Granted, they had what I think will probably be the best or second best exclusive this year in Bloodborne. That is potentially one of my 10 favorite games of all time. So hell yeah, way to go Sony, way to go PlayStation 4. But what else are they possibly going to have? I don't think they're going to have anything. Uncharted got pushed back. We know God of War is very far away. And even if they show that this year, that's probably still 2 years out anyway. Little Big Planet already came out last year. There was another one. Maybe we see what Naughty Dog's other game is, if it's Last of Us 2. I don't even know. I mean, I'm stretching this Sony conversation out. The point is, it sucks that gamers don't really know where to spend their money, and it sucks that Sony doesn't have a lot of games still ready to come out anytime soon. That's blowing my mind. But, at the end of the day, I don't want anyone to fail, so I'm glad they're being successful. It's just very strange. Lastly, really quick, I want to talk about when he mentions it's getting harder and harder to secure third-party exclusives, and I know that that's true. Like, that was just not surprising news to me, and that's something else that frustrates me. And I think that's because gamers nowadays, the younger gamers who have been growing up with like the 7th and 8th generation, don't really understand why exclusives are relevant, and they're not coming from the history that a lot of the older gamers like myself and maybe a lot of you out there are coming from, where we remember that that's how gaming was in the 8-bit and the 16-bit and the 32-bit and the 64-bit generations, and that was great. I think both first and third-party exclusives are fantastic. I'm thrilled that Tomb Raider is going to be exclusive to Xbox One, even if it's timed, which I think kind of sucks. I'm glad it's going to be, because it's like, yes, make an exclusive game. It's why I think that Bloodborne is a third-party exclusive. Bayonetta 2 is a third-party exclusive. Dead Rising 3 is a third-party exclusive, even though it is on PC as well. And those games, that's great. Every system should have its own library. And obviously, the business models that are being adopted by most of the third-party companies and Sony and Microsoft, 2 of the 3 console manufacturers, they are broken models. And that statement is showing that the model is getting broken and budgets are getting too inflated and no one can sustain themselves and sustain their success except for Nintendo, man. I'm telling you, Nintendo's going to be the one to make it through all of this stuff, because they're not stuck in this kind of situation and they still find a way to get third-party exclusives. And mark my words, we're going to get a couple more, I think, announced this year at E3 from them. But when it comes to Sony, they're in a really particular boat, and it sucks I have 2 not very positive pieces of information to talk about for them in this sort of week in review here. But, this is what Andrew House himself said, quote, at this investors meeting in this last week. So I'm just taking it from the horse's mouth and discussing it. So, I don't know. That's it. There's just not a lot of first-party games and exclusives to look forward to for the PlayStation 4 for who knows how long. So the last thing that I wanted to talk about, because there are a couple more pieces of news, but I've already turned this into a pretty long week in review anyway, talking about Sony and all this stuff. I want to discuss what happened with Nintendo and the rumor about the NX, their next generation machine, potentially using an Android-based operating system, and then the fact that they very quickly, after about, 1 or 2 days maybe, actually denied these claims, or seemed to have denied these claims. That was really weird information that came out this last week. And to tell you the truth, I don't really know that I even believe that any of these statements are actually true anyway. I don't necessarily believe that Nintendo is going to be using an Android-based operating system for the NX, but I don't necessarily believe it when they say that they deny it. I just feel like it's this weird, nebulous, up-in-the-air piece of information, and, there's just so much going on with Nintendo thinking about everything after the Wii U. I actually think they're in a pretty good shape for this current generation and for the Wii U. I think that system in the next year or 2 or 3 that it may have under its belt are going to be fine. I think Nintendo knows what games they're bringing to that system, and they've got some things in the works. I think it's going to be great. But when it comes to what's going on with the NX and where Nintendo is trying to take their gaming model after the Wii U is really strange and hard to figure out. We know there's the DNA partnership. We know that there is the NX, which is a very unclear sort of new, what did he say, new concept that is not exactly meant to replace the Wii U or the 3DS. And we know that they're also moving into the mobile market, but they're trying to confirm that they're not leaving dedicated gaming machines. And then we hear this information about a traditionally mobile operating system now being potentially used on their next generation machine. And it all doesn't make sense. And it all also fits together like a perfect puzzle. So it's just hard to wrap your head around it. I can't wrap my head around it, to tell you the truth. But I think it's all interesting. So if you think about the idea of using an Android OS for the next gen, Nintendo machine, to be fair, I watched a couple videos and read a couple articles to get an idea of a couple people's different opinions on this idea, the good and the bad, the positive and the negative, from people who might even understand it a little bit better than I do, because I'm not an overly techie guy. I've always said that. And so what I've heard is that the idea of using an Android operating system could potentially be restrictive, but is really meant not to be, and that's why Nintendo's trying to use it. An operating system, to be fair, that's not the power of the machine, and I think that was everyone's knee-jerk reaction to that announcement. I never had that worry. When I heard it, I was like, I wonder if that means only certain kinds of games will be possible, but it never had me worried about the power of the machine. So anyone who's thinking that they're going to make another underpowered machine just because there's a rumor about an Android-based operating system, that part I wouldn't worry about, because that's not going to affect the components of the machine, It really is just how the system, like the language the system speaks to developers when they're making and coding their game on the machine using the components inside of the box. And I feel like Nintendo knows that they have to make a really powerful machine this next time, and they got away, 2 generations kind of making an underpowered machine relative to its competition, but I'm sure that they know they can't do that again. So I think they'll make a powerful machine. The idea of using an Android operating system and how that's supposed to be very, very flexible and open for so many developers to do so many things, both, big and small, AAA and indie, that part is really exciting. But I do think that there's an element, for one, I don't think it sounds very good, which is why it was initially spun as kind of negative to some people. Is it just after this whole news about them trying to go mobile or whatever that's going to turn out to be, it doesn't sound good when you hear, oh my God, now they're taking a mobile application and moving it over to their new system. It's going to be this weird cell phone mobile game, indie, Ouya kind of just mess of a console. And, if they actually were using the Android OS, for all I know, that actually could be true. Like I said, I can't say one way or another. But it's just, it's another thing where there's not too much else to say. They came out and they basically denied. They said, the reports about us using an Android operating system are untrue. Basically something like that. So they didn't say we don't comment on speculation or rumor, which is actually good. They seemed to flat out deny it. And I want to believe them. I'm kind of 50-50 on whether or not I do believe them. But it certainly was also nice to hear them deny it, to hear them deny it. Unless someone else can really show us that it could be a potentially very good thing to have something like this on another on their 9th generation machine. But it's tough to tell, man. All this stuff that Nintendo's doing is so in flux, and no one even understands what they're doing with the mobile stuff. So that makes us wonder and even kind of worry a little bit more when we hear stuff like this that doesn't make sense. So I think that what this really teaches us, in wrapping this whole video up to, what that teaches us is that we need to just not flip and worry about it. Let's stop caring about Nintendo's next machine. Let's stop caring about their mobile stuff until they show us, and let's stop worrying that they're going to take the wrong business models and change their identity as a console manufacturer and a game developer and become something that we don't want them to be. Until we actually see it happen, or until they tell us that's what's going to happen, we shouldn't worry about it. Am I a little nervous after this information? Yeah, I am a little bit nervous. Could it turn out to really not be bad or maybe even a great thing? Yeah, it totally could turn out to be awesome and everything that it should be. But again, until we know, I'm going to potentially be a little bit nervous, which is why I'm not going to pay attention to it anymore. I suggest you do the same. Don't, blow your brains out trying to just decipher every little thing in the meaning behind every statement or every rumor and just have to know what Nintendo might be doing in the next 2 years with their next machine. Just play your Wii U or whatever gaming console you have that you prefer, or PC, and just enjoy that, and just wait for each company to come out with whatever they're going to come out with, and we'll just kind of figure it out and wing it along with them, because I think that's the best way to do it, and that's really how gaming is supposed to be. Anywho, that's it. I'm really tired and beat down from my crazy trip, and I'm jet lagged still from flying in a couple of hours ago. So I did the best I could to put together some semi-coherent thoughts on these pieces of information that came out this last week. There was so many other things to talk about too. I mean, it was just a really crazy week. It was good. I was glad to see all this gaming news out, but I was like, oh damn it! I'm not home and I can't record and make any videos and discuss this news with everybody and put stuff up on Rule to Review, and it just was such a crazy coincidence. So, but hey, I'm glad I got to put together this extremely long video that is kind of my week in review over 3 kind of big news stories that happened. Like I said, pretty tired. I had a really busy weekend and did a lot of flying, so that's why I might have struggled to be a little coherent in this video. But hey, it was still fun as always, man. I love talking about this stuff. As always, if you're new to the channel, subscribe to Rule to Review, helps me out. Definitely leave your thoughts about these rumors and these pieces of news below. A lot happened. I didn't get to be involved with the rest of the YouTube community who was making videos and talking about this stuff. This was the best I had to do, as I just made it back from my vacation, so I just bang, bang, boom, did those 3 news stories and kind of put them all together for you guys. So hopefully you found it entertaining and informative. I do want to hear your opinions on all this piece of news from Sony and Nintendo below. Thanks as always for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time on another video for Rule to Review.